Today, we are going to be revisiting that monster hiding under the bed. Interest rates. That's right. The number one reason people say, nope, can't buy a house right now. Let's look at the reality of this statement and get you the tools and the tips to show you the possibilities that the others aren't telling you about. Roll the music.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What is happening, my How to Buy a Homies? Welcome back to the How to Buy a Home podcast. I am your host, David Sidoni, the dude who's been fighting for first-time home buyers since 2019 because, hey gang, let's face it, the real estate industry sucks and they couldn't care less about first-time home buyers, or at least that's how they make you feel once you discover the so-called service that they're offering to you. So if you're brand new, that's what's going on. This podcast is Real Talk, the no BS guide for first-time homebuyers who are sick of being ignored, misled, or left behind by an industry that caters to the big fish and forgets about you. Not me, though. I've got my Coke Zero on a Saturday night, and I've decided this is the most exciting thing I can do. Today, we're going to put the real in real estate as we address how to defeat the elephant in the room. 7% mortgage interest rates. We are now more than 4 years past the all-time low rates of 2.66. We saw that in January of 2021. Now, back then, I told anyone who was listening that crazy interest rate was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Now, the buyers who acted back then, they're not only sitting on a 2.66% interest rate, they're also sitting on tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity and probably a mortgage payment that's less than $2,000. So for the rest of you out there, we're going to talk about these high rates because if you're holding out for 3% rates, homies, you know I love you, but let me be real and end that fantasy right here. That ship has sailed. Those rates were artificially manipulated due to a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic created by the government. They were never meant to last. Today, right now, May 2025, we're in a different kind of weird. Interest rates are high, but prices are still high. The inventory's low, and the home builders, well, they're actually pulling back and decreasing on their new construction. And what are the consumers doing? Well, everyone's just waiting. But the real question is, waiting for what? Because today, even though it's not quite as clear to see, I'm here to tell you that even in this ugly current market, there still is a smart way for first-time homebuyers to win. You just need to understand what everyone's fearful of and then see the opportunity that's out there right now and then make yourself a plan. All right, I'm going to start with some facts and data. As always, I try to start with that first, and then I'll jump into the practical tips on how you can find affordability out there even with these high interest rates. Here we go, data first. Remember, knowledge is confidence, and confidence defeats fear. In an article from CBS News from May 15th, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that persistent supply is shocking him. Yeah, the dude was rocked to his core. This happened because there got global tariffs, there's trade disruptions, and there's inflationary pressure. That, plus that supply shocking him, it's making him tough for the Fed to cut the rates like they'd originally hoped to. On the same day, May 15th, CNBC also ran a piece about Powell. And it quoted him saying that we're likely in for a higher and longer environment. Now, what he's talking about there is a higher interest rates for a longer time. So that means maybe we're looking at maybe 2 cuts this year, not the 3 or 4 that everyone predicted back in 2024. So that's creating some fear. And that fear, that uncertainty is the thing that really spurns the fear. Well, that's paralyzing a chunk of the potential buyers out there. Remember back in 2023, rates hit 8%, and the survey showed that 70 to 80% of potential buyers actually put their home buying plans on pause. Well, here's what's going down, gang. Most of those folks are still waiting today. They paused back in the end of 2023. They paused all through 24, and they're holding right now. But while they wait, guess what's happening? Well, according to another May 15th report, this one came from Riz Media. Now, that's one of my real estate industry nerd publications. I'm not a nerd. It's 9 o'clock and I'm doing a podcast. Home purchase activity is actually up 18% year over year. That means smart buyers, they're seeing that and they're jumping back in. And if you're listening to this show, guess what? You are one of the smart ones. Because when everyone else is running scared, you know that's when opportunity shows up. Let's move on to the next piece. We're going to talk about inventory because you know this is where most people, they don't understand this data and they get the entire picture wrong. I've been reporting, and some of you have been hearing, that inventory is rising. And a lot of buyers, maybe they hear that and they think, cool, more homes, then prices are going to come down, right? Wrong. According to the National Association of Realtors, even though inventory levels are up 17% compared to last year, even with that big of a jump, we are still drastically below the amount of homes for sale, the inventory of property on the market, way below what we need. And if you dive deep into these numbers, there's another report that dropped just today. It's May 17th as I'm recording this. It said that homes priced under $225,000, starter homes, places for people to get going into the market, at that particular price point, they calculated that right now, based on historical data, we are short 416,000 homes for this year. So that means household who makes $75,000, they can only afford 21.2% of the current homes that are for sale. And people making $100,000 in income, they can only afford 37.1% of the current homes for sale. All right, so this must mean that the home builders, like, they've got a great possibility for them, right? It's supply and demand. Well, here's what's going on with the new construction home builder pipeline. It's not looking great either. According to another Riz Media May 15th report, builder confidence, that's like how excited they are to get going and building homes, it fell to its lowest level in over a year. Between the high cost of land, the labor shortages, the expensive financing, the still stubborn material costs, builders are pulling back new construction, especially in the first-time homebuyer range. So let's work this data and figure out what it means for you. Home prices are not going to drop just because the interest rates are high. The inventory is low, coming up a little bit, but it's coming up from the very, very bottom. And then it's not coming up with new home builds because the builders are scaling back. So the supply problem we have, it's very real. And that's what's going to keep home prices where they are. So if you're waiting for prices to drop, you might be waiting a long, long time. In this market with high interest rates, a lot of the buyers are sidelined and they're waiting for either the high interest rates or the prices to drop. So what that does is it creates a rare moment where you, the educated and savvy first-time homebuyer, you actually have some leverage, because when you're talking to the sellers, even though the inventory is low, rising a little bit, there's still less competition out there. And that means you have more motivated sellers. And a lot of people out there that would be your competition, they're at home paralyzed. And that's when you can win. Okay, a lot of you out there thinking, cool, Sidoni, thanks for the data. How the hell do I buy a home when the interest rate is 7%? That's why I tuned in. Okay, let's get you some real strategies. And these are stuff that I've been preaching for a long time, but it's also strategies that have been implemented by real listeners, many of them interviewed on this show. And they've used them to buy smart, even at 7%. Some of them, actually, I got interviews of people who bought at an 8% interest rate. Here's your tips. Number one, mortgage interest rate buy downs. Now, if you're new to the show, maybe you haven't heard about this, but I've been talking about these for a while. I actually started back in 2024 when rates went from 3% to 8% at the end of 23. I started recording these episodes. There's episode 221, 236, 237, 256, 261, 280, 286, 326. Don't worry, I'm going to make JT put those in the show notes. And we've also talked about mortgage interest rate buy down in a lot of different interviews. It came up just very organically because I was interviewing someone and they went, oh yeah, we did one of those. So what the hell is it? Well, buy downs are huge. As you can see, the fact that it's been a tip that I've been raving about for a long time, it's something that I wish more buyers knew about because I know they're not hearing it from Zillow or an online mortgage application customer service order taker. And I definitely know the part-time real estate agents out there are not real up to date on how this works. Here it is. A mortgage interest rate buy down lets you lower your interest rate for the first few years. It can be 3 years, 2 years, or even just one if you want to. But let me give you the example of what we call a 2-1 buy down. So this is a 2-year interest rate buy down. It's called a 2-1 because you buy down the first year and the second year. This is how it looks. In year 1, your interest rate would be, let's call it 4.75%, considering that would be if we're going on a 6.75. Year 2, your interest rate would be 5.75%, and year 3, you jump to the rate that is where you were or are today when you buy a home, 6.75%. So on a 2-1 buy down, 2 points off the first year, 1 point off the second year, and then you lock into the rate. The cool thing is, in year 1 and 2, you're still sitting there watching the market. So if rates drop below 6.75%, below whatever you're sitting at in that temporary buy down, you can refinance into lower rate, and then you never have to pay the 6.75% interest rate that's coming to you on year 3. But the real magic trick with mortgage interest rate buy downs, you can negotiate the seller to pay for it. Even in this low inventory market, there's still a lot of scared people out there, so many sellers are offering credits to the buyers that do come out because they want to get the deals done. They see so many people sitting just scared and chilling on the sidelines that when they finally get a buyer, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to make a lot of money on this deal. Let's go ahead and give you a credit, and then you can use that to buy down your mortgage interest rate. So you as a buyer can get a seller paid perk that helps you afford the monthly payment today, even when the rates are high. And when the rates hit those lower numbers that everyone else is waiting for, you win. You already own that home. And now if it drops way down, you can refinance into the same rate that they've been sitting there waiting for. Except you purchased the home for a cheaper price, and you've gained all the equity and financial stability since you bought the home. All right, tip number 2, it's a partial down payment strategy. Lower your down payment so that you can stay more liquid, so that you can have more cash on hand in the bank. And that will help you make the higher monthly payments more manageable. We know these payments are going to be pretty high because of where the interest rates are. Let me give you the example. Let's say you saved 10 or 20% for a down payment. All right. A lot of people will tell me that they want to put it all down as much as they can because they would like to, quote, lower their monthly payment. Now, let's talk about why I put air quotes around the phrase, lower your monthly payment by putting as much down as you can. Gang, there are 2 phrases that I have heard over and over and over again, and they crush my soul. These phrases are killing blue collar and middle class would-be first-time home buyers. These are phrases used oftentimes by renters to stay renters as opposed to figuring out how to be a buyer. Now, here they are. So go ahead, mark this moment in your podcast, write it down, put it on your fridge. These phrases are killing the American and yes, even the Canadian dreams. This works in all of North America. I love you Canadians. After all, it is. Oh, it's Stanley Cup playoff. I should be watching a hockey game on a Saturday night. What am I doing? Okay. Sorry for the tangent. Here we go. Here are the 2 phrases that people say. Number 1, my rent is only $2,000 right now. And if I go to buy that $400,000 home, the monthly payment's $2,700. So the math says that it's way more affordable for me to rent than buy. That's phrase 1 that just absolutely gnaws away at inside of me because it's keeping people renters and losing them thousands and thousands of dollars. Combating this statement, it involves a rent replacement strategy to build your wealth by finding an affordable way to actually use that $2,000 a month that they're spending instead of it going towards nothing and shifting the mindset to understand the big math of home ownership. I get it. That sentence makes sense. It's, $700 more a month, but you don't lose $700 a month because your monthly payment is more expensive. Instead, you gain by putting $2,700 a month, $2,000 you already spend, into a forced savings account. And this is just me super simplifying the very, very first simple part of the equation in that false statement I hear all the time. That's what I'm trying to say. And I need to get to the number 2 crushing statement next, because that has a tip built in right in to help you beat the high mortgage rates. So I can't go into the other 24 mathematical variables as to why that first statement is wrong. So let's go to statement number 2, because that has to do with what we're trying to do here in today's show, beat the high interest rates. Here's the statement. Number 2, with interest rates so high, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford a house. So I have to put down a huge down payment so I can get the lowest monthly payment possible. And not to mention the fact that when I get to that big 20% down payment, I can avoid PMI. All right, on this one real quick, I'm just going to tell you, here's the thing on the PMI. I've discussed this a million times. I'm not going to go into it deep, but PMI being bad is a myth. It is not super expensive at all. And in fact, it costs you more in the rent payments and the home price increases to wait to save up until you have that 20% so you can avoid PMI. All the math and all the details are in episodes 198 and 216. So let's put that aside and we're going to deal with this part of the sentence. With interest rates so high, man, I can't afford a house. I'm going to have to put down a huge down payment so I can get the lowest monthly payment possible. All right, I hear that sentence. Here's the tip to help you navigate this falsitude and help you beat the high interest rates. First, we're going to start with the actual math, like the real numbers. All right, if you're looking at a $400,000 home today, I just checked the rates and it's 6.92% today. So at a $400,000 house, a 6.92% and 20% down, that's going to cost you all in PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance paid for from the payment, $2,475. And you waited to have 20% down so you get that payment as low as you want. $2,475. Same house, same interest rate, 10% down, $2,739. That's a monthly difference of $265. Now, before you get your panties all up in a bunch, I want to make sure that we add in the PMI. I checked with my lender, and there was a recent average buyers. We looked at a whole bunch of them. Most of them are getting PMI. Like, it ended up being a really weird number, around $91 a month based on an average credit score. The difference between 20% down and 10% down is $264. We'll add the 91, so that's $355 a month. So if you're sitting there with 20% down and you don't think you can buy today because the interest rates are too high, and you're going to put all the 20% down to get the lowest payment possible, that $2,475 payment, but then you're going to have nothing left and you're going to be house poor, here's a strategy. The difference is only $355 a month, right? But the difference between 20% down and 10% down is $40,000. So now, if you decide to put $40,000 down, the 10% instead of the 20, because you said, I got to put as much down, I need the lowest payment possible. Okay, well, what if you had $40,000 in the bank? And now, sure, your monthly payment's $355 more a month, but that $40,000 can pay the extra $355, pulling from your savings account for 112 months or 9.4 years. So this way, you can still afford the payment. You've got a bunch of money in the bank. You've avoided being house poor, and you stop renting ASAP, and you start building your financial future. And now, buying today, that means you get to buy with less competition because so many other buyers are scared and not out in the marketplace. And eventually, the cool thing is you've got 9.4 years to cover, but eventually your payment's going to go down when that PMI disappears, because once your home loan becomes only 78% of the total value of your home, which can happen as home prices continue to rise, not to mention you paying off the principal each time you make a payment, well, then that PMI goes away. So now you get rid of the $355 and you're down to, what was the other number I said, $264 difference? And you've still got plenty of money in the bank because of the $40,000 that you have. And yeah, just like anybody who buys a home right now, you also have the ability to potentially refinance into a lower interest rate should they drop, which will drop your payment even more. And you got the money sitting in the bank over 9 years of that $355 extra. And I'm pretty sure that in 9 years, you expect that you're going to be able to afford a payment from today. Remember, when you buy a home, the hardest time to make the payment is the first 1, 2, 3, 4 years, because each year you own the home, the payment stays fixed, and you should be growing in your life, your career, and if not, then at least in your budgeting. But if you're renting, that rent would have gone up every single year. Okay, let's take that same analogy there, and we're going to talk about using the same kind of math if you only have 10%. All right, so you're thinking, I've got 10%. I want to put it all down because interest rates are so high. I want to get my payment as low as I can. Well, 10% down on the same house at the same interest rate, $2,739. 5% down, it's going to cost you $2,871 a month. It's a difference of only $132 a month. And you get to keep 5% of that $400,000 price. That's $20,000. So let's do it again. $20,000 divided by 132, that gives you 151 months that you can pay the extra $132 or 12.6 years. Okay, more math, because I seriously don't want people to say I'm just philosophically saying this. You can do the exact same thing if you only have 5% down, because there are 3% options. Now, that's only going to give you $8,000 of the bank, but it's better than nothing. Or you can even use this math if you only have the 3% down right now. Let me explain how that works. Say you've got just the 3% down for a $400,000 house at the, 6.92% interest rate. That payment is $2,924. So what you've got to save up is the 3% down, and then you've got to save 2 to 3, we'll call it 3 to be cautious, for the closing costs. All right, so that's 6% total of that $400,000. Now, you took a look at that $2,924 payment, and you figured if you super budget, it's a big stretch, but you can pull it off. Well, what if when you were coming to the table, look at that 3% plus 3% for closing costs, 6% total, and it was $24,000? What if that $24,000 was all you have? Most people will say, well, I could buy with 3% down, but my $24,000, that's it. And then I've got to pay $2,900 a month, which is a stretch. So that means I'm going to be house poor. We only pay $2,000 a month right now. So let me combat it with some math. Here's an option for you. You can go out there and find a great real estate support team. You've got Unicorn Realtor and Lender helping you write offers on homes. And you can put in all your contracts that you actually only can make this purchase if you get a $10,000 credit from the seller. Then it's up to you. You can use that for a buy down that we talked about earlier, or you can use that to cover your closing costs, and then you keep an extra $10,000 in the bank for you. Now, $10,000 is only going to cover that $900 difference for like 11 months. So yeah, it's not exactly the great plan for everyone. I'm not saying that, go ahead and do this if you only have a year of cushion. But the idea of this, it's to help everybody out there see the math. Some of you might be looking at $200,000 homes. Some of you might be looking at $800,000 homes. Some of you might be looking at the difference between a 20% down payment and a 10% down payment. Some of you might be looking at 3% and trying to get it all from. It doesn't matter. Go back and listen to that again and understand the math. Now, you might start with one of these equations, maybe not as something to go out and buy a house with today, but just as your goal. Maybe you're like, you know what? He's right. Why don't we try to save for 10% and then look at a 5% down payment option so we can have money in the bank and we know we're not going to be a house poor? Look at these equations and then start saving. And while you're doing that, don't forget prices could change. Your rent could change. The interest rates could change, and maybe you get something better for you. Or maybe the seller credit options change and they start offering more. And then all you have to do is know it's there, know you've got the math, know you've got the team supporting you, and you adjust to the affordable plan for you. This is the way to beat the system, even when the numbers look like crap. The problem is they look like crap because too many buyers just look at the linear numbers, the most basic equations that anybody can punch into a mortgage calculator. And of course, that's going to create a giant stop sign. I wish that home buying was as simple as basic elementary school math. I wish it was, price plus interest rate plus down payment divided by income equals how much home I can buy. Ta-da! That's not the way it works. There are so many different ways to skin this cat and beat the high rates. In fact, I'll move on to the next tip right now. Tip number 3, using your 401k as a tool to help you beat the rates. Now, if you've got a 401k or some other kind of retirement, you might be able to borrow against it. And many times, when it's a purchase for your primary residence, it's a tax and penalty-free event. So it doesn't mean you're cashing everything out. It doesn't mean that you're, sacrificing your future. It means that you're using it wisely to bridge the affordability gap that we've got right now. You combine what you get from your 401k with a smaller down payment, maybe a seller paid buy down, and suddenly you've got a full plan, lower upfront costs, a more manageable monthly payment, and no fear of rising rent. There's more on the 401k stuff in episodes 22, 58, 75, and 113. I have had so many homies use this option. Once you see that your home is a big player in your long-term investment strategy, it's a piece of what you're doing, you'll actually be able to wrap your brain around the fact that you're not sacrificing your future by touching your 401k. It's truly a diversification of your retirement portfolio. And most importantly, it's a tool to help you create a rent replacement strategy so you can continue to invest into your 401k while you start investing into your largest monthly payment that you make, your rent, and you can invest in yourself for the longest time period possible. Okay, the next tip, builder incentives. Gang, new home builders, you heard it, they're not confident. A lot of them are hurting. So that buyer fear is squashing their confidence. So rad, take advantage of that. Get a killer real estate support team to give you the inside scoop because they are offering 30-year interest rates at 4.99% in many places across the country. We've actually interviewed people who got one of those, and I actually have heard about 3.99 in some places. It's a thing. And the last tip I'm going to give you, it's not for everybody, but if you fit the bill, maybe you should look into the 2 to 3% interest rates with assumable mortgages. That's all there in episode 326. Now, if any of these tips make sense for you, I'm going to give you a little bonus tip. Maybe you're in the fortunate position of having somebody who's going to help you out with part or all of your down payment. We're seeing a lot more of that happening right now, a lot of family gifts. Again, I understand this isn't for everyone, and there's plenty of episodes where I help people that have nobody to help them and they still ended up buying a home. But if you're one of those fortunate, privileged person, drop this math on the people who are potentially going to give you, a little help with your down payment, because what it does is it shows them how responsibly that you take this gift, that you're receiving that from them. And it's going to make sure that they understand that you're going to stretch every dollar more and more, even with high interest rates. Drop the data on them and quote Warren Buffett to them. I always say this, I heard him say this once and I was like, oh my God, that's genius. When people get greedy, get fearful. And when people are fearful, get greedy. They'll be impressed when you quote Warren Buffett. And who knows, maybe you'll get even more because they'll be so excited to help you when they see that you're thinking like an early adopter, like an innovator, someone going against the grain, but actually getting ahead of the curve because so many other people are afraid of what's going on. And if you historically look back, the people who act with logical, reasonable, and actually calculated out planning, they end up doing wonderfully because the markets have a tendency to go up and down and rebound. All right, it's Saturday night and the caffeine is kicking in. So now that you've got the data, the facts, and the market updates, and actionable tips, I'm excited for you to use those so you can win, even in this high interest rate market. So now let's chat just a moment, shall we? Let's get real on some stuff. What happens if you listen to this and you decide that you still want to wait? look, I get it. Maybe you think you're being sold. Maybe you think I'm here, trying to push you into something. Well, first of all, I'm not going to be a realtor. I don't care. Second of all, you can go out and get a unicorn. If you don't use them, I don't care. I just got a message today from someone who found their own unicorn and bought a house, and we're so excited to tell you about it because they learned so much from the podcast. Awesome. So I understand it doesn't make sense. If you've only been thinking about this for a few months or even a few years, it doesn't make sense that some dude will be on a microphone on a Saturday night telling you that, hey, I know it doesn't make sense, but waiting right now because things are high, I realize that's logical, but the math doesn't work. What happens if you say, maybe I should just wait until the rates drop? I'll give you some real dollar comparisons, and then I'm going to ease you into the smart money mindset so you can shift yourself from a consumer to an investor. Let's say that you want to wait a year, all right? Rates mid 2026, you think they're going to be better. I'll use this example from 6.75% to 5.75%, because today 6.92 is a little high. But let me just give you the math, okay? Remember what's going to happen when rates drop. If rates go to 5.75, all those 70 or 80% of people that are paused, they're going to come jumping back in. And so then what happens to home prices? Yep, they go up a little bit, or they go up a lot because there's a lot of competition. You might save 1% on your mortgage in a year, but you also might end up paying, I don't know, $35,000, $45,000, $50,000 more for the home. Here's the math. In scenario one, you buy today at $400,000. You know what? I'll use today's rate. Fine. Let's say you buy today at $400,000 for 6.92%. 3% down costs you $2,924. We already figured that out. In a year, rates have dropped to 5.92%. Bunch of people come out of the woodwork. Well, now that same $400,000 home is going to cost $450,000 because of the increased demand and bidding wars pushing the prices up. And that payment, $2,958. So today, at today's rates, $2,924. If you wait an entire year, but rates have dropped an entire point, that same home is going to cost you $2,958, actually $34 more each month. Oh, and since the cost of the house has gone up, you also have increased payments in your taxes, your insurance, and your down payment too. And here's the kicker. The informed and unafraid buyer from today who decided to just bite the bullet and go for it, they're sitting in a home that has already built equity. An example I just gave, they're sitting on $50,000 of free equity. I understand, homies, that the I'll wait for a better time mindset is there. I get it. It's reasonable. It's understandable. But mathematically, it's just flawed. Because in real estate, there is no perfect time. There's only your personal right time. And I always talk to people and I was like, well, David, what does that mean? Where is my personal right time? Well, here's what determines that. How stable are you? How you doing on your job? You good? You steady? Have you been paying rent for a little while? Cool. If you've been paying rent for 2 or 3 years and you haven't been evicted, you're stable. You're probably ready to go. How's your budgeting? How's your planning? And why don't you get yourself a pro team that can help you build a game plan, but one that's specifically around your situation, which brings us to the most powerful strategy that I think we recommend here at the How to Buy a Home podcast. It's the rent replacement strategy. It's your new mindset. Are you ready for this? This is a weird one when I was getting ready to do the show and I figured this out. The rent replacement strategy and helping you buy a home, it's actually not about buying a house. That's a consumer mindset. That's the consumer way to look at things. That's what gets people so caught up in the interest rate watching and all the drama from the media. So think about that. A rent replacement strategy, it's not about buying a house. It's not about buying a home. And this is from the guy who hosts How to Buy a Home, saying that the strategy that I'm saying is the best strategy to do is not about buying a house. This is about a financial transformation, transforming that big payment into something that is going to set you up for life. Your rent is your largest monthly bill. For most people, transforming that big payment into something that is going to set you up for life. Your rent is your largest monthly bill. For most people, 30, 40%. Jeez, I heard some people, it's up to 50% of their take-home pay. The rent replacement strategy says take that money, instead of sending it into the black hole while you play the waiting game, use it to build your equity, your leverage, hell, your future. When you commit to replacing the rent, not think about, oh, I have to pay more than my rent. No. You're replacing your rent, using that money. When you do that and create a proven financial plan, everything changes. Suddenly, your largest monthly payment out every single month, it can be transformed into a tool that lifts you up instead of what it is right now, which is your crazy monthly burden. You'll see that today's higher interest rates, they're temporary. But the equity that you gain, that's permanent. You're going to stop watching the market like a nervous squirrel, and you're going to start executing your own personal custom plan. And you know what? I know a lot of you out there might be thinking, it's too late. But, life happens when life happens. The reality is that here in 2025, later on, you're going to look back at this and you're going to think, oh, 2025, that was great. That's my early. It's not too late. This is your early. I've seen it firsthand. I started back in 2006, and then home prices just collapsed in 2008. And while they were going down, everyone was watching the market, started coming back in 2012, and then prices started coming up in 12, 13, 14, like pretty darn quick. But you know what? A lot of people were still scared because of the crash. So buyers held out. And then in 2017, 18, 19, I heard the same thing. It's too late. Prices are high again. Oh, I should have bought a couple years ago. Okay, well, let's take that story. Those people who were scared in 17, 18, 19, how do you think they're feeling right now if they're sitting in the same house when they bought it in 2017? They always say the best time to buy a home was 10 years ago, and the second best time is right now with a plan. Don't feel like you missed the boat. You're not behind. You're just waiting to be shown how to get ahead. I know those are like two quotes and two mantras that I've been saying for years, along with you don't make money buying a home trying to time the market. It's your time in the market. I also tell people all the time, you can't control interest rates or prices, but you can control your plan. So this is the stuff I've been saying to everybody forever. And hopefully some of that stuff resonates with you. But just for fun, I asked ChatGPT to give me some more. I fed in like all my little sayings and I was like, give me some more, dude. And this is what it said. The right home won't find you, but the right plan will move you. Oh, wordplay. Nice job, ChatGPT. How about this one? Markets don't make homeowners. Plans do. Timing the market is gambling. Having a plan, that's winning. And there's this one. The dream doesn't need perfect timing. It needs your permission. Waiting for the right time is how renters stay renters. Damn, ChatGPT, that was harsh. Easy, buddy. And then my favorite one that it did. You're trying to time the market. The professional investors can't even do that, but they all own homes. Whew, sick burn, ChatGPT. It's not a burn. It's trying to help you. I don't really like to speak in mantras. Those of you who listen to the show a lot know I like facts and math and real world stuff to show you that you can do it, and there are straight up answers to help you do it. And speaking of straight up, I know it kind of sucks right now to be a first time home buyer, because you're probably thinking, crap, I should have done this a few years ago when prices were lower or interest rates were lower. But you know what? Not being a first-time home buyer in 3, 5, or 7 years, that's going to suck even worse. I have the math and the data to prove it. This is not just about buying a house. If you've had me in your ear holes for any length of time, you already know this isn't a podcast just about real estate. This podcast is about your personal transformation. Your first home, that moment in your life, that is a pivot point. It's the move that shifts your financial trajectory for the rest of your life. It changes your relationship with money. It gives you leverage in the future. It gives you a playing piece in the game of life. It gives you stability. It gives you options. It opens doors, literally and metaphorically. And yes, literally is used correctly there. People who have bought with a rent replacement strategy mindset, now they have a monthly payment they can predict. They're sitting on equity, which is only growing every year. They're making more confident career and life decisions because they have options. That is the real power of home ownership. And you can do this too. No, that's not the end of the show. Don't play the music, JT. The internet and the abysmal real estate industry has been lying to you because they see you as too much work for not enough money for them to make. So they only really start to come after you when they see you as easy pickings. They either want you to do all the planning on your own and just show up to them as a perfect buyer, or when things are tough like this, they just kind of ignore you. Or they'll tell you things like, you're not ready, you don't have enough saved, come back in 6 months. You know, rates are too high right now, maybe next year. What do you think? The industry out there sucks. It was never built to help you win. Real estate industry is built to move volume. It caters to sellers and to the repeat buyers, and it rewards the biggest commissions. That's why I'm here to tell you, look, interest rates are tough right now, and it feels like they've rigged the game. But you know what? Understanding the rent replacement strategy and all this math, that's your cheat code. We're going to learn the rules of this game, and then we're going to use it against them to help create your own plan. That's what this crazy podcast is. That's what this movement is. You don't have to buy a house tomorrow. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. But I am saying start your planning ASAP, yesterday. And hey, if you want more information, you're brand new, bitchin', happy to have you here. Go back to episode 301, get the 10 steps every first-time homebuyer needs to figure out. The how, the where, and the when to start. If you've already listened to a few episodes, cool. Go back and listen to the interviews. Real people just like you who thought they couldn't do it. And make sure if you're listening to this regularly, you rotate in old episodes with new episodes. Always check up on the new ones because I like to give you the exact current data with what's going on right now. But go back and find titles on topics where you want some more education and clarity. And then, most importantly, get started. Build your team. A unicorn realtor and lender who specialize in first-time home buyers. They're going to walk you through budgeting and credit score optimization and custom loan options and down payment, possibly assistance programs, grants. And then they're going to talk about the down payment strategies. And they'll definitely be able to help you with the timelines and the target market so you can find the best deals as they happen in your area. But most importantly, a unicorn team is going to do it with one goal: to stop wasting your rent and to help you start building on your future. So look, I know that I've been going a little long here tonight. It's the Coke Zero caffeine, but this topic of interest rates being high right now, freaking everyone out and getting more people to hit the pause button, it's really actually very personal to me. I've been doing this since 2006 and long before I ever started the podcast. I was teaching tons of rooms of people, hundreds of renters who were scared and skeptical, and they didn't think they had a shot. And I watched those who listened and saw a plan build wealth. I wasn't necessarily great at what I was doing at that time, but I did just try to stick to facts and math and data. And so I watched the people who kind of came around and figured out that, hey, if I continue renting for a little while, I'm going to maybe feel like something better is going to come along. But boy, the math behind this means so much more. And then I watched those who waited just keep waiting. This isn't just numbers to me. This isn't me saying, let's think like an investor. We want you to do it so that you can make money. No, this is a replacement strategy because everybody's going to pay rent somewhere at some time. If you can use those numbers to your advantage, it changes lives. This isn't just a number or a sale. This is families. It's freedom. The average first-time home buyer, their age is, 38 years old last year? That just tears my heart. That sucks. And it's not because people can't buy a home sooner. It's because they don't know that they could. So don't let that be you. Fear is the oldest trick in the book, but now you have knowledge. Now you have tools. Now you have strategy. Now you can do this with support. So yes, interest rates are still high. So what? Now you have information. And with information, you have options. And you can get yourself a team to help guide you so you don't have to do this on your own. You can do this. Wait, again, JT, that is still not the end. Don't play the music. The best time to buy a home was yesterday. And the second best time is the moment that you can afford to pay the average rent in your area. So build the plan, take the steps, get out there, and get your damn keys. Take control of your life because you can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyaHome.com to get started.